What is going on, YouTube, and welcome back to Dead Jester Cinema. In this video, we're going to be ranking the final girls of the Halloween franchise, which, you know, thinking about it, it is a franchise that's kind of dominated by Laurie Strode, or whichever version of her there is, whether you're talking about Jamie Lee Curtis, or you're talking about Scout Taylor Compton. And there's not a lot of variety to choose from. So in this ranking, not only will I be ranking the final girls that are outside of Laurie Strode, I will be ranking the different iterations of Laurie Strode herself, and not looking at the actor's single performance of that character, which could span multiple films. I will break each Laurie Strode down by the film that she's representing. So without further ado, let's just jump right into this shit. Laurie Strode from the original Halloween 2 sits dead last on this list because she really doesn't do a damn thing in the movie. She's laying in bed for at least half of it, and for half of that, she's knocked out asleep, only to wake up and stumble around and fall back asleep. But when she does eventually wake up, she has kind of a strong finish to the movie, but it doesn't make up for the fact that this movie treats her as a secondary character compared to all the other new faces that this film introduced. So yeah, Laurie Strode, the original Halloween 2, I love you and I love the movie, but sorry, you're last. I really do love Scout Taylor Compton as kind of a different Laurie Strode, and she does turn in a good performance in Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 for what is there. Unfortunately, the writing turns her into an incredibly unlikable bitch. Now I understand because of the trauma that she has gone through and is experiencing, we're supposed to feel some sort of sympathy, and I guess on some level I kind of do, but it only goes to a certain point. I think other films in the franchise handle the traumatized PTSD Laurie Strode and those nuances better. In Halloween 2, it's like Rob only knew how to write her one way, and that's to turn her into a trashy, well, you know. Sarah from Halloween Resurrection isn't bad, but she also isn't really that good or memorable. She's pretty much the textbook definition of an average or a forgettable final girl. Now perhaps if we had gotten a sequel with her and they expanded a little bit more on her character, her ranking on this list might have been a bit different. But as it stands, she's about as vanilla and plain as you can get, and like I said before, kind of forgettable.
I so did not sign up for this.
Much like Laurie Strode from the original Halloween 2, this Laurie Strode from Halloween Kills spends most of the movie, if not all of the movie, in a hospital bed. And I would have put her at the bottom of this list with the Laurie Strode from the original Halloween 2 if it wasn't for a couple nice character moments between her and Will Patton. I think those moments are what saved this Laurie Strode in Halloween Kills from plummeting further down this list because yeah, she really doesn't do anything. I really like Kara from Curse of Michael Myers, but like I said before, the more this series has gone on, the more it has kind of become the Laurie Strode show, and it's hard for other characters that aren't Laurie Strode to share in that spotlight. And Kara is okay. She's not the atypical final girl we are used to seeing in these movies, as she's about college age and is a struggling mom living at home. And playing into that, the actress does do a really good job. But if I did had to point to a negative in this movie, it's just they don't give Kara enough range to play with. Yeah, she does have a nice scene in the middle where she goes and rescues her son Danny from the Myers house, in which she displays a really strong protective motherly side, as well as at the end where she's fighting back against Michael and kind of beats his ass a little bit. But I just don't feel like there's enough of her as a character because she kind of has a tendency to fade into the background, especially at the end when Paul Rudd kind of steals the spotlight from her. I feel like Karen is one of the most misunderstood final girls of the franchise.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people disliked her in this movie, and they unfairly lumped the performance of the actress in with what the character was supposed to be. The whole purpose of her being resistant towards her mother in the beginning as a character is that we get that flip at the end when she realizes, oh, my mother wasn't as full of shit as I thought she was. And we got that awesome scene and moment where she lures the Shape into her trap and shoots him in the face.
Gotcha.
Now don't get me wrong, she's definitely not among the stronger final girls of this franchise, but she's definitely one that I feel deserves a little bit more credit than what she's being given. There isn't a version of Allison in any one of David Gordon Green's movies that I dislike. However, for the purposes of this ranking, I would have to put this version of her in Halloween Ends as my least favorite. Not necessarily the weakest in terms of character, because as a character, I think this is her most well-rounded and perhaps the most well-performed version of her character. But I guess just out of an enjoyment factor, I put her here simply because there's moments where I find her character annoying. And possibly maybe even more naive as to what is going on right in front of her face than she was in the 2018 movie. I know Jamie Lloyd in The Revenge of Michael Myers gets a lot of shit because she is mute. And believe me, that's a story and a character decision made by the writers that I do not agree with, even though I understand what they were trying to do. But as a character unto herself, I feel like she's a bit underrated in this movie, and Danielle isn't given enough credit for her performance. Plus, she has a very strong third act in the Myers house being chased by Michael Myers that I absolutely love. And it's here where I think Danielle really shines and really helps elevate this movie from being kind of a dumpster fire shit show. Now, I know a lot of you will put this version of Laurie Strode from Halloween H2O towards the top of your rankings, but for me, I just feel like it's Jamie Lee Curtis playing Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode. Now, coming off the heels of the most recent Halloween movies, like I'm talking about Halloween 2018, Kills, and Ends, I can appreciate the subtlety of her PTSD and trauma a little bit more than I used to. However, it still feels like the chintziest of window dressing, and almost a PG way of dealing with the trauma. Like, oh, just make her a CW level alkie and just call it a day. And for somebody that's supposed to be so traumatized as she claims to be in the movie, she still seems a little bit too put together, especially in the face of losing her boyfriend and almost losing her son at one point. I understand not everyone reacts to trauma the same way, but for whatever reason, this version of Laurie from Jamie Lee Curtis just never did it for me. And don't even get me started about how they shit all over her in Halloween Resurrection. Andi Matichak, who plays Laurie Strode's granddaughter Allison in the 2018 Halloween movie, is probably one of the better final girls in recent memory in the Halloween franchise. But sadly, I wish we just got more of her, as I believe as a character we are just only scratching the surface in this first movie. But I like the journey her character goes through, from starting off as sort of the middle ground between the new age views of her mother versus the apocalyptic doomsday views of her grandmother, and her struggling to cope with both ends of that spectrum. And then by the end of the movie, it's obvious that her grandmother has been proven right all these years, and Allison has turned into a little bit of a badass to help save her grandmother and her mother from being killed by Michael Myers. Once again, it's probably sacrilegious to many of you that I put Scout Taylor Compton's Laurie Strode from Rob Zombie's first Halloween remake over Jamie Lee Curtis's from Halloween H2O, or any version of Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode for that matter. But I really like Scout's performance in this movie, as she really does convey a sweetness and an innocence to a degree that I find genuine, as she has great chemistry with all of her female co-stars as well as the two kids that she babysits. Like, she seems like the cool babysitter that I would have loved to have when I was a kid. I just think she plays the part really well and does a good job of setting herself apart from what we expect Laurie Strode to be based off of what Jamie Lee Curtis had done for years. Allison in Halloween Kills is a very different animal than what she was in Halloween 2018. Very much like Laurie, she is done playing the victim and is going to be the aggressor and hunt down and destroy Michael on her own. And I do feel like that's the natural progression of what that character would be coming off of after the events of the last movie. That is why this is my favorite version of her character, as she's not so naive as she was in the first movie, but also not as annoying as she would become in Halloween Ends. Now, if you're gonna go with a PTSD-stricken Laurie Strode, then Laurie from the 2018 Halloween movie, in my opinion, is the best one. Do they push it a little too far with her PTSD? In retrospect, yeah, probably. And I believe in hindsight, they probably should have flipped the versions of Laurie Strode from Halloween Ends and 2018. What I do like about this version of Laurie is that she is not f***ing around and waiting to be a victim. She's going on the hunt in a very Sarah Connor Terminator 2 kind of way. Plus, I love the showdown between her and Michael at the end of this as well. And I think this probably would have been a more satisfying conclusion to their stories than what we eventually got 2 films later. But in the entire David Gordon Green Halloween trilogy, it's Laurie Strode in Halloween Ends that I believe is the strongest version of that character. Still suffering from trauma, she is trying to put the pieces of her life back together, and I really think Jamie Lee Curtis does a great job conveying that inner turmoil and struggle. I feel like she is the right balance between the kind of crazy Second Amendment Laurie from 2018 and the trying to hold it together Laurie of H2O. She still conveys a sweetness and a wholesomeness, like in scenes with her and Allison and Lindsay, as well as scenes with her and Hawkins, but she can also be afraid and paranoid like in her scenes with Corey, and then tough and resilient as in her final fight against Michael. Halloween Ends is a movie about coping with trauma and trying to move past it, and I think this is the best type of Laurie Strode to convey that.
Show grief your fucking tits. Fucking tits. Fucking tits. Show grief your fucking tits.
Danielle Harris as Jamie Lloyd in Halloween 4 is one of the great final girls of this franchise. Even at her young age, she didn't come across as the atypical child actor. She did a really good job of being able to convey a wide range of emotions, and plus I think something just hits differently when Michael Myers is going after a child. I think there's a greater sense of danger involved and a greater sort of vulnerability that makes you more invested into that character. And like I said, even at her young age, I think Danielle did a really good job of drawing you in as a viewer and making you feel that vulnerability and the terror that she was feeling, as you could really put yourself into the mind of a small child being chased by this psycho boogeyman killer. Without question, Laurie Strode from the original Halloween is the iconic final girl of this franchise, but I do have her at number 2 on my ranking, and sorry if that pisses a lot of you off. And let me make it perfectly clear that it's not to where I feel like she is unworthy of the number 1 spot, but there are just slight differences between her and who I have above her as to why she is sitting here in second place. First off, Jamie Lee Curtis is that cool babysitter that we all wanted growing up. She's extremely sweet and down to earth and has great chemistry with everybody she's involved with on screen. But they didn't call her the Scream Queen for nothing, because when it came to being terrified, nobody can do it better than Jamie Lee Curtis. Once again, just go ahead and burn me at the stake for being sacrilegious and putting anybody else but Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode in the number 1 spot of this final girl ranking. But if I'm breaking it down character to character and comparing them off against each other, I always come back to Rachel from Halloween 4 as being my personal favorite, because I believe she embodies the best qualities of Laurie Strode while also being tough and being a protector. Plus, her on-screen chemistry with Danielle Harris is incredible, and you can buy those two as being sisters in real life. Like I said, she conveys a vulnerability and a sweet side, and you feel bad for her in moments where her character is getting shit on, but then she becomes tough and resourceful and fights back against Michael and protects her younger adopted sister from him. Plus, she has one of the most badass final girl moments when she runs Michael down with the truck at the end of Halloween 4.
Die, you son of a bitch!
GTA, motherfucker! Oh, yeah! 10 points!
So yeah, I know Jamie Lee Curtis is the icon of this franchise, and for a lot of people, any version of her Laurie Strode would probably be number 1, and I couldn't disagree with you. But for me, Rachel from Halloween 4 on this ranking, and for me personally, is my favorite final girl of the Halloween franchise. Well, everybody, that is it. I am done ranking the final girls of the Halloween franchise, and quite frankly, I feel like I am running out of things to rank in this franchise. But how would you guys rank the final girls of the Halloween franchise? Do you think there are any that I missed? I think I got them all, but anyways, please post your rankings in the comments below. And as always, like, comment, and subscribe. Adios. Now, GTFO!